Go ahead and get started.
Is he ready?
I think he's ready, right, Jeff?
Double click if you are.
This is the Development Review Committee meeting. This is being videotaped today. That's something we're going to start doing. We've had a few of these before without video, so that we're going to start having this videoed and put in our YouTube channel for the city. But this meeting is intended to provide feedback to applicants as a technical review, not a spot to take public comments from the public, but for a technical review for technical matters from staff with applicants. This meeting occurs between the application stage, when you make application, and before it goes to the Planning Commission. So this is a chance to try to have a discussion about comments that have been made and so forth prior to this going to the Planning Commission meeting, where it is a public meeting and there are public comments, and staff does give the presentation on the actual application and the technical merits, but also it's a chance at the Planning Commission to have public comments. But again, today is primarily for a technical review. So with that being said, let's go on and jump into the agenda. The first one on our agenda, first case, is SD 1909. This is a multiple occupancy project approval for Pier Street Marketplace. And I think Larry is here from the engineer. And Buford, if you would give us an overview of this.
So we have a three-unit multiple occupancy project at the intersection of Pier Street and South Mobile Street. And we've had one DRC meeting on this item previously, and has carried over. And so we're working through and have several comments going back between staff, the applicant, and the applicant's engineer. And so it carried over and could potentially be on the March Planning Commission meeting for consideration. And so we just want to use this time to see, we have some additional correspondence with the engineer, Mr. Larry Smith, and wanted to have the opportunity here to, if we can answer any additional questions about correspondence or any other technical review that we can do here.
As of right now, no. We got the last letter, and I appreciate that, Buford, getting that to us in a timely manner. We are working on coming up with a site plan that will meet kind of what y'all would be acceptable with, and what we can also live with as far as parking. That one's still going to be the hard one, to be able to get parking. And so we're working on that, and we're also drafting our letter to the municipal judge to be able to get any type of I don't know the technical term.
Relief. I guess relief.
Yeah, relief.
Yes, sir. Yeah, relief would be
so
the
we're
best.
working on that right now.
Very good.
And Buford, would you explain the issue with the municipal judge and municipal court?
So this case triggers requirements of the city of Fairhope's landscape ordinance, and the landscape ordinance is pretty lengthy and pretty in depth, and it's a standalone ordinance. And among some of the requirements of the landscape ordinance is that it requires an additional landscape buffer for any projects located along various roads, with the best examples being Fairhope Avenue, Greeno Road, in this case South Mobile Street. And the width of the required landscape buffers that it would apply to the site do affect the amount of space with which the site can be developed. Unlike a subdivision issue, which can be requested, where you could request waivers to the Planning Commission, or a zoning issue for which you can request waivers, variances, etc., to the Board of Adjustments. Because this is a standalone ordinance, the relief has to be sought from municipal court. And so there's a desire for the applicant in this case to potentially make a request for relief from some of the landscape buffer requirements to municipal court.
And if I'm not mistaken, the actual ordinance prescribes this method.
Exactly.
As far as one municipal
exactly.
court, so.
It is outlined in the ordinance as requiring it to go before the municipal court. The way it reads technically would require submission of a building permit, which would be denied, but we've done some vetting, and it appears that the correspondence that we're using going back adequately satisfies that requirement for requesting relief.
Okay.
Other than that, I don't have any questions.
Anybody have any questions of Larry? Anybody? On Pierce Street? All right, thank you, Larry.
Thank you, sir.
All right, let's move on down to the next item on the agenda. 1911, Montrose Properties for final plat for Fox Hollow Phase 2, 59 lot subdivision. Tim, how are you?
Good. How are y'all doing today?
Good afternoon, Mr. Lawley.
Good afternoon. Break my kneecap here.
Very good. So we have the final plat application for Phase 2 of Fox Hollow, and this subdivision is located off of Morphy, just east of Morphy Avenue. Phase 1 has long since been completed, and homes are under construction in Phase 1. So we're reviewing. This would be the final plat approval for Phase 2. And Tim, we have our correspondence with the review comments that we've been going back and forth. We corresponded via email this morning, and I have just a couple of brief things that I will send you this afternoon via email.
Okay.
And so thank you to Eric Cortines for helping me. We found a couple of ADA ramps that need some attention in there.
I'm aware of one of them. I don't
Very
know where
good.
the other locations are.
And there's another area where we marked with orange locate paint, where some of the panels, the side slope would need to be corrected, but we've got that marked, and you'll get an email correspondence this afternoon telling you exactly where they are.
Okay.
Everything else, Tim, all the other comments in there were fairly routine.
Right.
Fairly routine things that we handle on a subdivision final plat, but we're happy to answer any of your questions from anything that we sent you.
I don't have any questions about anything that I've received thus far. So
Okay.
if I have any questions about the additional information, I'll get back with you.
Very good. Do we have any idea, just for everyone's information, any idea on a schedule of light pole installation from Riviera Utilities?
I don't offhand.
Okay.
The transformers are in there as of now,
Okay.
and I have actually the owner sent me the street light invoice today, so I'll be furnishing the city with that.
Very
And,
good.
but I would anticipate sometime in the next couple of weeks.
Very good. And also, Mr. Pittman contacted me yesterday. He is in the process of contacting Riviera to get permanent power established on the lift station.
That was done yesterday, and they're supposed to be setting the meter today.
Very good. Well, what that will allow is the Fairhope Sewer Department to do the proper startup and know that lift station has permanent power to it and can meet their needs for getting it started up. And then after that, it'll be a matter of just going through the title transfer on the lift station.
Correct.
So other than that, I have no other issues than for Mr. Lawley.
Okay.
And
Thank you.
forgive me if I missed it or whatever, have we had the final walkthrough inspection at this point in time, or have we been doing it kind of à la
I'll
carte?
let Buford answer that question.
And we've been doing it à la carte. We've been doing à la carte, Richard, and I am happy to go out there. I'm happy to walk the site down with you at your convenience. And Eric Cortines and I did a walkthrough ourselves this morning.
And I'll be happy to meet anybody out there as well.
Yes, sir.
if-
Yes,
if
sir.
they be.
This is just something that I'm trying to do these on an à la carte basis with the various staff to try to make it a little bit easier and more efficient to get them done, and then filter all the comments back through me, back to the engineer.
And I'll go ahead and I'll check with my folks. I'd probably send streets out there just to pull the lids and just check inverts and all the signage up and everything good there, Tim?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
And I know
Except for maybe one intersection, I think all the signage is up.
Yeah, all the signage is up. I do believe we're missing the future 3 street signs, and the contractor
They-
has those ordered.
And we noticed this morning, it appears those are in place now.
Okay. And just, there was only one on the approved set of plans, which Proveris originally done, and I just went ahead and told him to get one for every street, because I've been down that conversation before. It doesn't go anywhere.
Very good. Yeah, I think the very first intersection on Finnick,
Okay.
when you're entering Phase 2, I believe the street signs still need to be installed for that intersection,
Okay.
but it appears that all the others are in place for all the other intersections.
And Buford material test reports are good.
Yes, all the material test reports are fine, though, Tim, there is one additional inspection video that was missing. I have sanitary sewer, but I don't have stormwater.
Okay.
And I think that one may have gotten commingled with some of your CDs back at the office,
Okay.
but all that's,
So you do have this, I thought the sanitary sewer was the one you were missing.
I have sanitary sewer, I need storm.
You need the stormwater. Okay.
Yes.
It's on the original packet they gave me is on my desk, and I intend to submit it with the review package
Yeah.
back next week to you.
Since you're putting together correspondence,
And
that'll be great.
Buford, and just so people know, what does that mean? I mean, it sounds you know.
Absolutely. No, that's great. That's great that we're now videoing this. So one of the requirements for a subdivision, one of City of Fairhope's requirements in subdivision regulations is that the sanitary sewer, which is your toilet water type of drainage, as well as your storm drainage, all of that infrastructure, when it's put in place into a subdivision, after it's in place, part of the closeout procedure is you have a video inspection company, and they actually utilize a robotic inspection tool that video records the inner diameter of all the piping, the inside of all the various drainage structures, et cetera. So that way, we have a record.
What are they
that-
checking for?
And what they're looking for are there's any damage, there are any cracks, any connections, especially with concrete pipe. Are they mating properly? Are the gaskets in place? Or is there any excessive debris or siltation inside the pipes, et cetera?
And you watch those?
Of course, absolutely.
Sounds exciting.
Okay, it is.
They're
it
very
is-
exciting.
It is outstanding.
It's about an hour of your life you'll never get back.
Fortunately, you can speed up the video.
Yes, yes, they are very exciting to watch.
But we have found gaskets that were pinched and actually looped inside the pipe as opposed to being in the tongue and groove joint. So it can let you know that there's a problem, especially
Yep.
if you start finding material in the inverts that it has to be coming from somewhere. So it is a great tool and a good record. But no, it's not going to win any Oscars.
Not at all. But like Mr. Johnson was saying, when that is your best opportunity to correct it because you have equipment mobilized, you have
Yeah.
personnel in place. So if you do have an issue, that's the best chance to fix it.
Yep.
All right, anybody have any questions of Tim? Tim, questions of us? No?
I don't have any. I'm gonna stay here, so I think I'm the next two up here.
All right, let's move on down to the next item on the agenda, which is the rezoning 1904 for the RSA property. The request is to have a conditional annexation with the tourist resort district zoning. Nancy, is yours?
Yes, they are annexing approximately 99.15 acres, and they are proposing roughly 224 units, but as it stands today, it's in unzoned territory, so that
Where's it located
Baldwin
at?
County unzoned,
Where's it?
just north of the existing Battles Trace
Okay.
subdivision. And let's see what else. So the county would allow 287 additional units, and by coming in, they're reducing it to 224 units.
Okay.
So,
And this is adjacent, contiguous to existing
right,
TR zoning?
right.
Okay.
So basically, we're working up the staff report on this
Okay.
right now, and we've talked a little bit about traffic, and he was just giving me a little bit of information on that.
Okay.
And I will Tim and I have had some conversation about how to proceed. I think, first of all, as you know, the portion that is currently built was part of a singularly owned tract of land that was a master development. What I understand is that the RSA Systems has had the opportunity to buy additional land adjacent to the north, which is this 99.15 acres. Two things have happened. This first concept came out, 12 years ago, 13 years ago?
Approximately.
And of course, there was a transportation impact study done at that time. Well, the availability of that organization that did that original study is not there. So I think what RSA through HMR is trying to get a new transportation engineer to, one, take that study, include the expanded area, and come up with another refreshed master traffic impact study.
That's correct.
That takes time, folks. I mean, I'm just going to tell you that. And kind of jumping ahead to the next case is actually the first phase of this 99.15 acres, is that they feel that by the time we consider this before the Planning Commission for the first phase, they will at least have a cover letter that addresses this phase's impact, since it's adding an additional connection to the whole system, to the public road systems, with a promise to a future master study that covers the whole new master plan development. So
That's correct. And the study for the impact of Phase 6 is underway, and I'm hoping to have it sometime next week.
very good.
Yes, everything you said is correct. And just for, I guess, clarification purposes, the original development was approved for 637 units, and 2 entrances, which those 2 entrances are now built. The addition of Phase 6 is going to give us the 3rd entrance on section, and at the build out of Phase 6 will be at 310 total units. So we're still at roughly half of what the original contemplated density was for just the original property.
Right. Okay.
So,
This is all gravity sewer now too, right?
yes.
Okay. All right, any questions?
Painfully so, but yes.
Any questions of Tim? All right, thank you, Tim, appreciate it. Moving on down to the next item on the agenda, this is subdivision 19.12. This is, again, RSA property, plat approval for Battles Trace, Phase 6, 45 lots. Nancy?
Yes, this is the one Tim was just talking about, and we have met, well, they had discussions on drainage with Richard Johnson. The drainage on this particular property is going to be a little bit off-site from the actual parcel of Phase 6, and I've given him his staff report and his staff review letter and his checklist.
Okay.
And so if he has any questions or concerns or...
I know we're feverishly working on it. I did have one, I don't foresee it being a problem. The date for return was next Wednesday at 9 a.m. I was just wondering if there's any flexibility on that, if we can't make that, because I have... Okay, because some of the other applications I have aren't due till Friday. I'm working on that one first.
Okay.
And I don't foresee it being a problem.
Yeah, we try to get them, we try to set deadlines because
Yeah.
we have to prepare staff reports and have them ready
Understand.
for the agenda for the planning commission to hand out. So, yes, we'll work with you, but we need to have it.
Yeah,
You know,
and I'm gonna do my
very
best because
soon.
I've got 2 other ones that have to be done by Friday.
Right,
So,
okay.
And I don't, as of right now, I don't foresee it being a problem. It just may be tight, I may be printing stuff Tuesday afternoon to get it to you Wednesday
That's
morning.
fine. And both of these are on the same basic
Right.
area and property.
I've
so
gone
I
through
think-
all of it. It's a lot, but it's nothing that I have any issues with. I just got to put it all together and get the changes made and get everything formatted.
And
back
we've
to-
talked about a lot of
Right.
the issues, so I think.
Okay.
And as far as our deadlines go, we did have to bump this meeting, so it will now be on the 12th. So that would give us a little
One more
extra
time.
leeway.
Okay. Can you explain the off-site stormwater?
Yes, we are, there will be, let me back up. To this point in the development, phases 1 through 5 have all drained to the centrally located 17-acre lake that's out there. And now that we're getting on the east side of the ridge that runs the property, we're going to have to do some additional attention as that water doesn't naturally flow to that area. So instead of doing small ponds here and there, we looked at where's the low spot of that whole side, and that's approximately 1,500 feet to the south of where Battles Trace Phase 6 will be. And so what we have done is developed a master pond, if you will, that will not only serve Phase 6, but will also serve several other phases of the development. I don't know how many, because it'll depend how that's broken up, but the total number of lots is somewhere in the 175 to 200 range.
Okay.
And a portion of that is on the original TR District property. A portion of that is going to be on the golf course that's adjacent to the TR District property, and we're going to provide drawings such that show that it's tied in with Phase 6 and can't be filled in or that kind of stuff. And so it's actually going to serve as a dual-purpose aesthetic feature for the golf course. It's going to be in play between 2 golf holes, but it's also going to provide detention for the neighborhood.
Okay. Good. Anybody got any questions of Tim?
The only question I have is, on this phase, we have a low area where you're going to have a road crossing over a small section of wetlands.
Correct.
That will be handled. We've got, the wetland permit. We can do that when you guys are coming for a land disturbance after you've gotten all your approval. When you come for a land disturbance permit, we can do the wetland development permit for what we need to do in that wetland area at the same time.
Okay.
I just want to make sure that I know you said you guys are working on it.
Yeah, we're working on it, and I would anticipate we'll have that probably next week as well. Like I say, this is the first time I've done one. I guess it's been a while since I've done one. Y'all have had the ordinance, but I guess I wrongly assumed that since we did the core permit that would supersede any city permitting. And so we're going to end up doing both. We've already submitted everything. I'm actually meeting with Core tomorrow on site at 10:30. They wanted to do a site visit for some reason. And but anyways, we'll get all that to you.
Okay.
All right, anything else? All right, thank you, Tim. Moving on down to SD 1913, another RSA project, preliminary plat approval of Polo Place 3-lot subdivision. Buford.
And Mr. Lawley is still with us, so Tim, and for everyone watching this, This project is located on South Section Street, south of Old Battles Road on the west side of Section. So Polo Ridge Boulevard is south of Old Battles, and it's immediately south of Beaver Creek Drive. And what this would do is take an area, a wooded area very near the fairway of the golf course, just north of Polo Ridge Boulevard, and carve out 3 lots. It's outside the city limits, and it's not zoned by Baldwin County as well, but the lot size and the lot width is all in compliance with City of Fairhope subdivision regulations. And Tim, all of our comments on this one were fairly routine, straightforward. The only slight difference on this one is that even though we have 3 lots, there is some infrastructure that will have to be constructed because a sewer main extension will be required to service the 3 lots. The manhole into which that extension will tie into is already identified on one of the drawings, and so we'll treat this as a major subdivision with a preliminary and a final closeout. And Tim, I think I'm pretty correct to say that there's more than adequate drainage in that area to more than adequately handle 3 lots.
That's correct.
Because it has, portion of it can drain to the Polo Ridge Boulevard right-of-way where you have valley curbs, and the rest, I'd say golf course probably drains pretty well.
And just in the past, in my experience, when you're dealing with small developments like this, 2, 3, 4 lots, sometimes it's almost creates more of a problem to try to capture all the drainage in a centrally located area and then point discharge it as to letting it just sheet flow and go out to the golf course into the existing drainage facilities on Polo Ridge Boulevard.
And the subdivision regulations do tend to contemplate that when you have a small number of lots. So
Right.
the major subdivision aspect of this will build the sewer connection.
Right.
All the other utilities are available.
And Tim, this was a major subdivision because of the infrastructure
Because of the
requirement?
infrastructure.
And you guys had your community meeting?
We originally submitted it as a minor,
Right.
and then were notified by the city that it had to be changed to a major, and so the community meeting is scheduled for next Friday.
Right, okay.
We typically, even though there's not a timeline as far as the advertisements on the ordinance, the 2 I've done now, we've given a 2-week notice.
Right.
And so once we found out it was a major subdivision, we got the notices out 2 days later, which was last Friday.
Right.
And we're having it this Friday, or
And
next Friday.
This is the first cycle where this has been utilized, basically, as you all know. Right now, we have a required pre-application meeting that the applicant's required to come in and meet with staff and go over the regulations and go over the requirements. Between the pre-application meeting and the actual submission for the planning commission meeting, they do a informal community meeting and meet with the neighbors and the adjoining property owners and go over the project, get informal feedback from them, and then they take all those comments, design the project, and then submit it for the planning commission. And Tim, on that same note, we have gotten quite a bit of comments about this 3-lot subdivision. I think this is undeveloped property that's been undeveloped for a while, and there's an existing neighborhood very near this, and so there's some concern about some of the lots and how it may interface with their homes. So I would highly encourage you guys to try to take those comments and advisement and do what you can.
We are. We've gotten a lot of the same comments, and we are actually working with the developer, RSA in this case, to contemplate putting in a green space or buffer between our lots and then the existing lots.
Right.
And
Yeah, because the way it's kind of configured, it's a
yeah, I mean, it's not an ideal configuration, and it definitely, I don't know how, I was looking at it the other day, I don't know how they got away with this, but the houses in Polo Trace are only about 12 feet off the rear lot line. I mean, they're right up on it.
Right.
And so it's not your typical 30-foot rear setback.
And
so-
Polo Trace is,
Or not Polo Trace, I'm sorry, Point Clear Stables.
Point Clear Stables.
and
Yes.
that is in the, is that in the city or is
That's
it
in the county.
That's in the
All that's
county.
in the county down there.
It's all in the county.
But just try to alleviate the concern, man.
We are, and I don't think there'll be any full alleviation of it, but we are definitely taking it into consideration, and
Okay.
I'm hoping to have some sort of different proposal than what we have to discuss with them at the meeting next Friday.
Thank you guys for doing that. That's the whole
Yeah.
purpose of the community meetings, is try to work things out informally rather than come into planning commission and get into a big
Right.
dispute. And we want to it's better off try to work together to solve problems prior to getting to a meeting and having a big blow up. If it's possible, we'd like to try.
We're going to make an effort to do that.
Good.
And Tim, I think where you have an advantage here is because that corner against the Point Clear Stables residential lots, and that corner, that area between the edge of Fairway and where the Point Clear Stables residential lots begin, is heavily wooded. So there's some opportunities to take advantage of that as well. And you even have, it looks like, without measuring it in the field, it looks like you have a number of trees in the right-of-way that were preserved. So
Yeah, I think there are a few.
There's some trees in the right-of-way, that'll sufficiently take the place of street trees, more than sufficiently take the place of that. So you have some advantages that you can take advantage of there as far as vegetation.
Okay. Any questions of Tim? All right, thank you, Tim. Appreciate it.
Thank you, guys.
All right, let's move on down to the next item on the agenda. Subdivision 19.14. This is a plat approval for Magnolia Church LLC, 4-lot minor subdivision.
There we go. And this subdivision, this is a minor subdivision application, and so this will occur at the northeast quadrant of the intersection of Magnolia Avenue and Church Street in downtown Fairhope in the Central Business District. And Mr. Smith's with us, and this is a fairly straightforward, essentially taking a single piece of property and converting it to 4 lots. It's zone B2 general business, so which does not necessarily specify a lot size. And so in this case here, Larry, all of our comments were very minimal and very straightforward. The only thing, my only question here was about, we realized we had a Board of Adjustments case on this property several months ago, and so that administrative appeal was granted and is still in effect. My only comment here is just make the client aware that if they do wish to proceed with the townhouse development they were contemplating for the Board of Adjustment case, double check the lot size requirements for townhouses, because the way the zoning ordinance reads, those have to be 3,600 square foot size lots. Look at that, and it may be advantageous to possibly address that lot size now, possibly, since we have a case before us. And I think we understand, the exact use of these may not necessarily be known right now. There may be some future replats when a development application comes forward. But I noticed that I discovered that after I'd sent my review comments. I just wanted to point that out while we were here discussing it.
And Buford, this property was subject of a variance, is that right?
Yes. Well, they requested a special exception. And the special exception was on the same property was to the supporting documents in that Board of Adjustments case showed a proposed townhouse development on these 3 lots. The exact lot size was not known at that time. And the issue is that in the Central Business District, that residential unit would require rear access, rear loaded parking. The Board of Adjustments granted the request to have front parking to those units should they be constructed. But I double checked, and obviously that exact use is not known here. But I wanted to point that out because this would give an opportunity to maybe adjust those lot sizes if that was the desire of the client. It doesn't have it in the chart, Larry.
Yeah, I was going to say, where is that?
It's in the special conditions section of the zoning ordinance. When you look on the dimensions table, instead of having a dot or a circle for townhouses, it has an epsilon, and that tells you to go to the special conditions. And that section has about a half a dozen special conditions for different zoning districts, and it lays out the lot size required for townhouses.
Okay. Well, that's 3,600 square feet.
3,600 square feet, yes.
Because that is still their end goal.
That's their desire. So that'd give them the opportunity to stretch these lots a bit to give them that extra space if they wanted to proceed that way.
Okay. And then the only other, I think the really only comment that you had was about the front setback.
Correct.
Of 20 feet. How does that work being within the CBD where they can also end up doing 0 lot line if I put it on the plat?
So And so, and I think one of my comments was, you know, certainly understand that there's a future development application forthcoming. The way it reads is that non-residential developments are built at the lot line. And so not knowing if there's a residential or a non-residential development coming, basically I made that comment just so that way this application we know complies with the zoning ordinance.
As it currently sits.
As it currently sits.
But I just want to make sure we don't end up in because I've got some jurisdictions that make me put zoning setbacks and plat setbacks because sometimes they differ.
Okay.
And I just want to make sure that I don't end up with a condition where y'all come back and say, well, yeah, but the plat says you're at 20 feet. And I mean, there's several jurisdictions that make me do that. And so can it be more of a wording on the side that it basically mimics the zoning ordinance?
Yeah, none of the plat says that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Current zoning ordinance?
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. So if you wanted to reflect that in the notes under the, in the site data table notes right there,
Yeah.
that'd be fine with me.
Okay.
Yeah, that'd be fine with me. Everything else, Larry, was very, all of our other comments were very minimal
Yep.
and very straightforward.
All right. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Larry. All right, moving down to the agenda. I believe the next 6 items are with AT&T. You guys waited very patiently. And it's a combination of fiber optic cable and then also a few utility poles, 5G. And so let's just do those together if y'all don't mind. And Mike, you want to give us a quick overview? And kind of tell us what's kind of going on?
So what we have is a proposal by AT&T to run some new fiber and extend some fiber into places that they don't currently have it. And they're also at the same time going to be installing some new mini cell towers in Fairhope. A total of 13 is proposed at this moment. So with where those small cell tower sites are, we're also running some new utility or some fiber optics to those sites to support those, and also I think a little bit of overbuild for future implications. We have on for the actual new lines that are going out. I think we have 5 separate cases for those.
Yeah, actually 4 are linear feeder fiber projects. One is a facility overbuild project, which
Okay.
is the UR 1906, so it's a little different than this.
All right, so 1906 is new services, is that what that is?
It is. It's an overbuild in an existing area, which is all the area there listed.
And is it fair to say that where it says aerial is where there is currently aerial, and where it says underground, it's where it's currently underground? Is that how?
Not exactly, not here. What we ran into in this area, there are some odd rear utility easements and some places that we are not even going to try to get back through. So in those areas, we are proposing some new aerial plant. There's existing aerial power and MediaComs in the air in those areas as well.
They're not proposing any new poles in the ground.
No
This is
new
all
poles.
just strictly new attaching to
Right.
existing poles
Right.
and lines that are already up there.
Yes.
And just to
Yes.
verify, you said MediaCom's already overhead on these poles?
Yes.
And you'll be going on the same poles?
Yes, City of Fairhope poles. I submitted some power drawings to Mike Allison, showing pole loading and then number of poles that's part of our joint use agreement with the city.
And I spoke with Mike right before this. He was unable to attend this meeting due to another meeting that he had to be at.
Okay.
And he's giving a quick overview of these. And since there are no new poles, we're attaching to existing aerial at this time from his initial review. Not seeing any problems. The heights where they're going to be lashed onto and everything he said
Yeah.
looked like it was conforming to any regulations or restrictions.
Right, we didn't see any NESC clearance issues when we designed it, so everything looked to be okay.
So as far as
that goes.
these goes, I told Mike that if we ran into anything, I would communicate that with you. We're going to continue the review, just double checking it again with everything that is there. And I just want to be clear that we aren't adding any new poles in the
No.
ground or anything that's not already aerial to the area.
No, we'll be adding some new anchors and down guys, but they will be inside the halo of the existing. since we're the lowest attachment, we place closer to the pole when we place an anchor than the power. So everything that will be anchored and guide will be inside that existing footprint.
Okay. Another thing with it would be just to be the, routine comments, getting out door hangers and the normal kind of.
Yeah, there's no real HOA here to deal with.
For most of these,
like
it
we
wasn't
have.
going through the middle of subdivisions, but we'll make sure that all the adjacent, in case there's any type of interference with any of their power or anything that has to be done due to the installation of the new lines going through. And for those reviews, I think that pretty much covers everything for that. And then along with that are the mini towers that are being proposed.
You've got a podium for you to zoom in on anything?
And I have up on the screen is a map that shows the locations of all the proposed towers. There was, I think you submitted a total of 15. Two of those we returned, they weren't in our jurisdictions for you. So the 13 of them that are listed, it was number 11, number 12 was not, would not come before us. Then I also have map printout of them here. One of the biggest things that we're going to be kind of looking at is, are these poles going to fit with the character of the surrounding neighborhood where they're going to be located?
Right.
And if everybody will bear with me, I actually have pictures for every site that they're located. For structure number 1 that we have, it's at the end of Gayfer Court, or off of Gayfer Court, at the end of a cul-de-sac. And there's some of these, there's existing overhead that is there. There's some light poles, some power poles. Talked about co-location. That's really the big thing that we're trying to do, is co-locate as much as we can. The pole might be a pretty pole, but if you see 15 poles in a row, then it's not really what we're going for.
Well, if I could add, co-location and where co-location is not an option, concealment techniques. I mean, obviously, this is Fairhope's has worked very diligently to maintain a quality character here. So I know you guys have done that before. I know you'll do that. But, so we're looking for something that's going to be aesthetically pleasing, and so all the typical concealment techniques is what we would ask you to do.
I think everything we propose is a metal pole, and what we'll do is, we have an antenna on the top of it, and I think there's some pictures of it as well, but like we'll shroud in between the pole and the antenna so it just looks like one constant thing. The only thing we will have is a cabinet mounted, which would house our radio equipment, and I think we're going to set up a meeting with the city to talk about meterless power, so we don't have to put a meter on each of these.
And also, we have several historic areas around the city. We've got a cemetery across the street is a historic cemetery with a historic plaque and so forth. So areas like that, we're going to be very concerned about trying to maintain that historic integrity there.
Okay.
Go ahead, Mike.
And we'll get to that picture here in a minute where we can see where it's actually going to be proposed location. This is the structure 1. This is just a picture. The location will be on the bottom left hand in the front yard. That's going overhead aerial to the middle of where this cul-de-sac is. It's kind of showing there's already a cluster of wires coming from the primary there. And this is the site in between the 2 driveways, kind of behind the mailboxes where that first structure was proposed. A couple of the concerns for this particular location is 1 being right in the middle of the residence, and 2 being underneath this oak tree. Everything's going to be within that drip line of the tree. And there's a couple spots around this area. I must not include that picture. That could possibly have some co-locations that are further down the street. Now, what kind of? I know you said that you went with 100 feet within a certain area that you guys have deemed was, a low service spot.
Right.
So how far from this spot would have been the area that was low of service that you're trying to fill that gap?
This one's right there, kind of where the gap is that we need to fill. So if we can, we have to cover what needs to be covered on this in this instance, we would have to be really like about within 100 feet of that. And to address co-location, we would rather co-locate too.
Right.
But so this pole, our antenna on this pole is at 30 feet, and that's these are really low powered sites. Normally when you think of AT&T coming in here trying to build a cell tower, they want to build it as tall as they possibly can, and that's really not how these work.
Right.
Really, if we were to build the antenna any higher, it wouldn't work. So we need to have the antenna between like 25 and 30 feet. So it's kind of tough to locate on some of these distribution power poles because we have to maintain a separation from the power lines.
Right.
And that spot is normally taken by
Something else
By
is already
some-
on the pole.
Just trying to visualize, for example, so if you had to set a pole there with your apparatus on it has to have power, correct?
That's
Now,
right. Power and fiber is all that
Does
comes
that
in.
power come in overhead, or would you bring it in underground to it?
I assume you would prefer we did underground, so that's what we would do.
Okay, so there wouldn't be another line running from
No, no, no.
the already overcrowded, and of course the fiber would come in underground.
Yeah, we typically set a small handhold with the terminal in it next to the pole. That has the-
And what is the typical cabinet size for this? I mean, just from the three dimensions, it is a 3 foot tall, 2 foot wide, 1.5 foot deep cabinet. What?
Yeah, it's 3 feet tall, about, I think it's 14 inches deep,
Okay.
and 1.5 feet wide. Yeah. These are pretty small enclosures. But yeah, we would, and with this being a metal pole, I mean, we would underground everything because we try to not to go aerial to metal poles anyway.
I just knowing the sensitivity of our citizens. I mean, I'm not sure how the citizen that lives there, that's going to be centered kind of on their little wedge of the front yard frontage, even though it's public right of way. I have, if a neighbor cuts a branch off of crepe myrtle, I get a call about it. So, that is a concern.
Well, and I would add too, is that we require for new development, underground utilities and, because we don't want to see the power lines and those kind of things for the study purposes, but, so, that kind of plays on what you said, Richard, just about sensitivity of the
Right.
citizenry.
I mean, we could look at this and see, get in that cul-de-sac and see where we could fit in, add a property line to be out of as many people's vision as we could, but that would really be the extent of it to do what it's designed to do.
Okay. The second site is where we were just talking about the historical cemetery. And in the pictures, there's really nothing overhead that is around it in this area, but it's in between the sidewalk and above the rock decoration there, the retaining wall, and the wrought iron fence of the cemetery. A lot of people, this is a common area where people are walking all the time to look at the cemetery, to go into the cemetery. Like Wayne was saying, this is one of the historical places that is in Fairhope. And again, at this site, there's other locations. What are the possibilities of locating any of these towers on rooftops?
I don't know.
Like
Like
on
on a
maybe
business rooftop?
maybe on adjacent business roofs,
And
or
also probably within a few hundred feet of here, you got the police department have their tower and the police, yeah. And which is probably 200 feet from the spot.
right, it would
Just
be
back over here.
within 200 feet of the site is a police tower. Now, I don't say that I can say, yeah, we can put it on the police tower. That's something that I would have
to explore.
to explore. But is that, are these options that we can, other avenues we might possibly go down, is working out some type of agreements with, the Fairhope to get it on top of maybe a tower, on top of even the Civic Center, if the height is there for it, and there's a petition on the roof, whereas it's not visible jumping out of a big cell tower.
Something where it's hidden by a parapet
Different
wall.
things.
Well,
So,
and one other question, what about, and I don't know if since it's city property, but we've got light poles out here for the actual parking lot here that is right there.
30
you're
feet from us.
20 feet from.
Right, these are the light poles that
Across
are,
the street.
Yeah.
these are literally right behind. I took a picture of the proposed site and literally turned around and took a picture of the light pole that is in the middle of the islands that are in the parking lot.
that would probably be something we could move to. If we would need to be at 30 feet, that looks taller than 30, I don't know. Maybe a little bit. So we would have to come down like on a sidearm, and then we would need some kind of easement from the city to run power or the city would have to provide
Right.
power
And then
and to get
I would-
fiber.
I would have to
there.
look into the wind load to make sure that the poles that are there could handle additional equipment being on there.
I would think
I
that
think
one.
the city we, as staff would prefer it being located with a light pole as opposed, especially in this situation, as opposed to being right next to the cemetery and adding an additional pole.
Sure.
And it's one of those unique, that, on that block, there is not a single vertical pole on that side, so, that, to introduce one is a tough one to think about, so.
I would say by looking at that pole and just from past experience and doing structural analysis on some of these streetlights that we've tried to locate on, that pole probably would not hold what we need to do. It'd have to be replaced with a sturdier pole.
Right.
Yeah, I think we'd be glad to work
That's-
with you on that, if that's something you want to do.
Yeah, on any location would be happy. The other picture I had in here was across the street was a new building that had just been put up, just as an example of, a flat roof that does have a little partition wall that comes up, where if that was something that was viable, which I don't know if
Just
it
out of
is.
curiosity, the parapet that you see on the front of that building, if it's at 25 or 30 feet, can it just set up right there on that parapet? You wouldn't necessarily,
We'd have to put it on top of the wall.
that's what I mean.
Yeah.
Yeah, where it's visible, absolutely,
And-
but you wouldn't necessarily have to mount an additional pole on that roof to get it any higher. If that parapet measures out at 25 or 30 feet, you could mount it to the back of structurally to the back of that parapet, so it's set up and it's visible on the front, but it would possibly serve the same purpose, be able to provide what you need it to provide.
Potentially, I don't know that. I mean, if we're screwing into, drilling into that, I don't know that they're going to
That's
want us
pretty
doing
solid.
that.
I mean, they just redid that building, so I know a little bit about that building.
And the one next to it's going up
Yeah,
now.
the one next to it is insulated concrete forms at 170 miles an hour, so I know that.
So
What's
what?
the height of that building? What's the height of it?
They're probably going to be right there, the
35?
same height as that, 35.
So when we get into that, we get into a leasing agreement. Trying to work out a lease agreement with them. What's that going to cost, and how we're going to get fiber and power up to that roof. And then you're looking at, we're probably going to end up having to install additional antennas. These things don't broadcast down, so we're going to be on a roof, and it's going to, anything coming off, if we were to go to the front of that, probably, it's just not going to get, it just doesn't give us the clearance of that. Mounting to buildings is really, we really, it's not the best option for the network, definitely not.
I know back during the cell tower craze, back in the early 2000s, I mean, we, for a while there, everyone put up new cell towers, and then we say, what about, water towers? What about this? What about church? I've seen them put them in church steeples in Walton County, Florida. They're going to put one in a bell tower for a cell. I mean, so, we want to look for opportunities that helps you, but also, disrupts the city in the minimal necessary.
Sure.
Because we do, I mean, the service is needed. We agree with that.
No, we wanna work with the
5G
city.
is technology that is out there, and we don't want to deprive anybody of that service. At
know
the
the
same time, we have a
service is gonna have to
responsibility
come
to the citizens to find locations that are the most advantageous for you, but also that doesn't disturb the city.
After these first 13 polls, after this first wave of polls come in, we know that's not the end of it. It's
Exactly.
not going to be, here's 13 new polls,
You got Verizon.
have a good time. Then
Right.
it's going to be, every other company is coming in, and then it's going to be, well, AT&T has a couple more spots where they want to increase coverage, so it'll be more, 3 or 4 polls, a year from now or whatever. So we're trying to just, on the front end, avoid having, 50, 80 just monopoles stationed all over the place where everybody goes by and it's like, all we see when we look around are, mini cell phone towers. So we're trying to get on top of that to where we can get them camouflaged, we can get them hidden in other locations so they're not out in the open
Right.
like these.
So I'm gonna plan on trying to get for that site we just looked at. I'm gonna get if you have specs on that light pole or anything that you can provide, so we can get some kind of structural analysis done to see if it'll hold it.
Yeah, Richard, who is the caretaker of those poles? Is it Public Works?
It'd be public utilities.
Public Utilities, okay, all right. And they would be here today, but they had another meeting to go to, unfortunately, but conflicted with them, but we can get you in touch with the Utility Department.
Sure.
This is the third structure that we got going on. This one is just to the right of that bench, right next to where that big pine tree is going to go. There is light poles in the area. Now, there are, I don't know how tall those poles are. I'm not sure how tall these light poles are, but there is, in this spot as well, there's no other overhead, anything anywhere. So everything would be going to be a direct burial if there was a new pole to go in. Or on these light poles, if we could look into the possibilities of attaching to those. And you showed me a picture earlier where you have your equipment box is actually located on the ground, camouflaged in a cabinet, where it's not, 10, 12 feet off the air, kind of at eye level when you're coming in, because this area is right down to Fairhope's pier, where somebody comes into town to visit Fairhope for the first time. One of the first places they're going is straight down Fairhope Avenue and down the hill, and this would be one of the first things that they're going to see coming in.
This is probably the most iconic shot of Fairhope and one of the most picturesque spots. And also, I just want to mention, the park above this site that's where the vast amount of our community events are held. So that's obviously very, very important to us, trying to minimize, any kind of
That's why we're putting it there. That's why it's going there. There's so many people on the pier. Because really, I know we have service issues here, but these are more of a capacity solution where so many people are gathered using, trying to use their phones and use their data.
Right, and we're well aware of the shortcomings of the network around here for all the phones, not just AT&T. But this is very iconic. If there's a place to camouflage this, we would absolutely encourage that.
Even though across the street, there's the gully, there's the bluff. Seems like there's other locations that are within maybe that same zone, that area that you're looking to put it, that's not right in the middle off the street.
We actually already have we've got a copper cable that comes across Magnolia and cuts kind of through Knoll Park and goes down the bluff to feed the pier now, which we've got an existing conduit back to a pole that sits behind the park. It's like right here in that area. That I don't know if that's a good location for y'all, but that would be a fairly easy place to get to, maybe without a lot of.
And my one comment to
Yeah, that's it.
Mr. Jeffries was that this is the one place that something that is camouflaged, painted a brown color, something that could attempt to disappear into the background, because really, when you think about the foot traffic that this site sees right here, whether coming down those stairs from Marina George or down the sidewalk on Fairhope Avenue, and especially when there's big events and parking is all up in the Central Business District and they're coming down, just, this is one of those things is that's got to be the location, the aesthetic, because,
So this is it. So that's where we're at. And this may sound crazy because we're talking metal poles, but really the best thing that would blend in here, if we came in here and put a wooden pole with a brown antenna on it and all the equipment was the color of brown. I have one outside my office in Hoover, and it's just like that, and you can't even find it.
I think from my perspective, I personally would, if there's another location that you can co-locate, because when you look at, Fairhope's ranked in Southern Living routinely the #1 place to visit, blah, 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 all these things, in Southern Living, all these magazines, the first picture you see is that, down the street. And so, if at all possible, if there's a spot that already has a pole or whatever, or you've already got existing equipment, we would highly encourage that to be.
We can go look at that pole. I'm not sure what all is on that pole we're talking about.
I have a really silly question.
That's the pole I'm talking about, I think. It's right.
Jeff, you want to say it in the mic?
No, really.
Our director of IT has stating that there is a pole on top of the bluff in its location that has handholds and other features.
We took an access point up there, and it covers a pretty good area, so I'm sure a small cell would have, similar
Is that the one we're talking
success.
about?
I think that's the pole we're talking
Is that-
about. Where we've got.
Things in there.
Yeah, it's about
somewhere.
right there, yeah. We've got fiber ran to that location. We have an underground.
Right.
pole
And I think
for
that's
it.
where, because we relocated some aerial cables. The city actually put conduit in for that. I think maybe 2010, something about that time frame. And I want to say it goes to that same location as well.
Yeah, yeah.
So we can get through there without having to bore and that kind of thing.
And the city owns that property?
Yes, city
So
property.
we need some kind of easement from the city to get power back to.
There's probably power there.
So there's probably already.
Y'all probably have power there.
Yeah, we got power
We
there.
have power there.
Yeah. I think it's just a 4-plug right now. I don't know. We just plug a switch into it.
Okay. I'll adjust these two. We'll look at that. I think we'll be able to do that. I don't see why we wouldn't be able to
Okay.
do that.
Mike, can you go on the next one?
I don't know how tall that pole is. We may end up having to swap it. Or we need to be at 30 feet.
Yeah.
I think it's around 30 feet.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, so for that pole, you're saying at 31 feet at that location is what the information that we had. The next site, where Structure 4 is right on South Mobile Street, right where the American Legion is, and right next to their driveway, in between the sidewalk and the road, in the right-of-way there. That's kind of just a back across the street from the Elks Lodge parking lot, and we go to the left side of where you see the underground fiber marker. This is where it would go. This is right on a corner. And again, it's another this is the entrance point, I would say one of the major entrance points back into downtown Fairhope, coming from County Road 1 or coming from the outskirts driving down. This is, once you get to this point is when you start getting into the more residential district where
Right.
lots of walkers and bikers.
And this spot is coming up from the Point Claire Historic District. Point Claire Historic District has been set aside since 1991 or so. So you're coming out of that, coming into this, and this is again one of the scenic drives into the city. And we actually have a enhanced landscape buffer that's required along this road because of the scenic nature we're trying to encourage there. So again, if there's a location we can co-locate on, we would highly encourage that as well. Mike, go ahead.
And I had just a question. I don't know if we would really want to do it or if it's possible to do it. But what about installing it on an actual tree?
That was my
I mean, I
question.
don't,
Like on, because we have
Yeah.
pine trees. I mean, most of your power poles are pine.
We got pine trees everywhere.
And,
We
yeah,
can
that's-
set you- we can set you up with
They're
a
getting
pine
taller
tree.
over time.
Selling
Oh,
cheap.
so yeah, I mean, they do grow. So it would. You have that fact. You go from a 31-foot, tall. Also, a couple of years you got 32
It's a 10-year
feet.
plan.
is your fiber stretch?
I was saying,
Stretchable?
just use the coiled up fiber so that way it slinkies up the tree as it grows. But like we were talking about up here, there's all the pine trees. So if this was it's even pine, I would have to get with our with the horticulturist to make sure that he wouldn't have a problem doing any of this.
I'm not sure.
I was saying about this property.
Do we
line, but
have
there's
a
overhead
light
power
pole
there.
out here? Is there,
In front of Legion?
yes,
Like a street light?
a street
I
light?
don't
think
think
there's a
so.
security light right at their entrance on the south side of the building. It's going to be, because you can come in, that's
I didn't take
Go
a
back,
picture of
Mike.
that far.
What about across the street at?
Across the street, the
Possibly.
lodge, there's clusters of overhead power. So
Yeah.
I'm sure there's
That's why
probably
we're
a light on one of those poles, but there is already a cluster of wires that, and I have a picture of a tower, that is already, small cell tower that is already in,
Right there. Yeah, it's behind the Legion.
and that's behind the Elks Lodge.
Who is that? Is that you guys?
Verizon.
Y'all can't work out with Verizon to put it on?
So there's even, and, put this picture in here saying, that's in a right of way that's fairly close to location, but it's in between a parking lot in the rear of a building on an alley that is used by, maybe 7 people.
Well, that's what I was thinking, across the street from the Legion would be between
And
Gambino's
the
and
Elks Lodge, and there are
no Gambino's in the
the
hotel.
hotel.
in the hotel, that
That side.
way across the street.
And when Mr. Jeffries and I were talking about this, and I don't understand the intricacies of co-location, things of that
Yeah,
nature.
I said just replace them. It's got media power.
But on the other side of the driveway, so immediately a little, 100 feet to the north, there is a power pole there that has service on it. Is it just difficult to add that apparatus to an existing pole?
Say about 150 feet north of
If
that.
if you were to turn around and look north, you would see that power pole right there. Or that-
I'm looking at Google Earth too, so.
Yeah. And, you know, so there's looking that direction.
Yeah.
So if
Does
you
that have a
just
light
sweep.
on it?
With the light.
Or two light heads on it?
No. No, there's no light heads on it. It sits a little bit off.
I think part of the problem would be getting it high enough and having the clearance between
I
the
got it.
wires, but they can't go above the power poles.
Can I use Earth? Could we use Google Earth on that and go through
Yeah.
this? Mind if I do?
Google Earth.
My
That's
battery's
an awesome
died.
tool. At night, I'll travel to Italy and just drive around a little bit on the Google Earth.
All right.
Got everything all.
I'll play music in the
We're on
background. Having mimosa.
Hey,
There we go.
there we go.
We are recording.
I'll tell you what I'll do.
Yeah, that's what I was just
See how many views you get.
I could do.
I don't think we're in line for any Oscars.
Probably not.
All right, that was 4, right?
You're asking the wrong guy.
Okay. So the power pole just right next to it.
That's it right there. You can see the
Oh,
utility
power
marker
pole.
that.
As long as the utility company didn't have an issue with us going on that, we could do that.
That's
Fairhope.
And that's Fairhope,
Yeah.
right? Right.
Well, I just, you know, it's already there. It's already got a lot of equipment on it, so.
We would
I
just have
think-
to swap it for a little bit for a taller pole though, because we'd have to have the separation from those power lines.
Yeah.
Is that 20 feet? Is that 20-foot separation? What's the word?
No. I don't know how yours is. Alabama Power is 40 inches.
Yeah, 40
Okay.
inches.
I don't know where I got 20 feet from.
And that's MediaCom on the.
And when we're gonna, just so everybody knows, we're gonna have a meeting with Michael Allison to go over an unmetered option for these as well. And we can go over these sites again and possibilities.
Michael Allison's the
Electrical superintendent.
superintendent. Okay.
So Michael Allison will help Bill to answer some of these questions that we're going, can we put it here, can we not, when it's on our utility poles, he'll be able to answer some of those questions more definitively
Right.
on that possibility.
But that would work for us.
Okay. All right, Mike, can we go to the next one?
Number
I was
5.
through all through Earth.
This is important.
Yeah. And the next site is just another site that's right at the end of a cul-de-sac. And again, it's almost in between, on the property corner between two houses. And again, it's a residential neighborhood. This is at the end of Kumquat Street, right off of Pierce Street, where Kumquat dead ends, headed north. There is, on this site, I don't believe there was overhead power on either side of the street here either. Is going on top of, this whole street is cut down probably 6 to 7 feet below the natural grade on the east side where it's going.
I do look at it Earth.
Yeah, sorry, yeah, go ahead.
This air conditioning, either all on or all off.
So this one we have identified right here, right?
Yeah. That's an old picture. Most of those trees have been cut down. There's a light pole across the street that I think is a primary, so I don't think Michael Allison's going to want to attach it if I'm correct in saying that's a primary, it's got a transformer on it. I'm not an electrical
Yeah, I haven't been a power
genius.
company that would let us attach to a pole house.
So I doubt there, I know there is, so there's overhead power across the street. I don't know if that's, any of those poles would be able to, but again, we can get in depth on locating on that utility pole. There isn't another possible location besides the utility poles to put up for this particular site. But again, it's, the citizens, whenever we start putting up several poles in front of their houses, they're gonna want it, but they're probably not gonna want it in front of their house. And even at the end of the cul-de-sac, I didn't know if there's a possibility of putting it at the end where it dead ends. It's in the right of way on the edge. There's overhead power then going back to the houses, and there is a pole, not a primary pole, that is set up there. There's a telephone pedestal, I think, underneath that pole. So I know there's something already there. If that was the location, it's in the corner, more tucked away, not in the middle where somebody, every time they walk out to check their mail or look out the front door, that they're gonna be looking at one of these poles, especially where I said the elevation change for these houses. That pole for that site, might be 31 feet, but when they're 7 feet off the ground, now that pole's a whole lot shorter. Now there's more eye level when they're looking out at it.
So I think we can do that if we would just have to, when we have the meeting with the utilities, that would have to be swapped out for a fatter, taller pole, so it would be able to hold our equipment, but that's not a far move at all. I think we'd be able to do that.
Let's see. We'll move on to the next structure, number 6. This one, I believe, is off of Booth Road. And on the side, it's just south of the Songgrove subdivision. It's a vacant piece of property that it's in front of in the right-of-way. Again, there's overhead power across the street, but it's, I think, main transmission lines that are running down. Possibilities of locating on that, I'm just gonna say, we're probably not even gonna wanna look into that because there's,
This one will have to be a new pole, right?
yeah, I'm pretty sure this one will have to be in the location on it currently. Like I said, the property that's behind it across the street, it's all wooded. There's an older house that's on there that's, probably, it's not I don't know when the last time somebody was actually living in that site, and it goes down into a little bottom there. So for this side, we would just probably, maybe one of the green poles, we just look at the color of the pole to make sure it was blending in as best it could on that site.
All right, so if just so I know, if we're gonna say this is gonna be a green metal pole in that right of way right there, for the next meeting, do I just update my construction drawings to reflect that? Or how does that work? I've never been through one of these meetings with
For
Fairhope.
the final construction drawings, once we figure out what the poles are gonna look like, what they can be made out of, we'll just cite it on the drawing here where it says proposed metal pole. It'll be just proposed metal pole, green in color. And I'll have all that written down, and it'll be in a staff report showing that that's what
Okay.
each pole will look like.
That'd be great.
Yeah.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
We do. Next one. Try to get you guys through these. I don't want to take up your whole day.
So the next one is going to be located off of Greeno Road. It's right by O'Reilly's Auto Parts store, right on the corner there. And it's located right by a little gas meter.
So right on this corner.
Yeah, if you zoom in, because O'Reilly's is probably not there yet in this picture, but I can see the,
Is that the old, it's Sears?
yeah,
that's-
go back to your
that's
left.
The image is a couple years
Yeah,
old.
if you just zoom in where that fire hydrant is,
Oops.
it's almost, yeah.
That is all right.
Yeah, this
It is.
this one's from May of
This one
2018.
is new. So for this one, it's going, there's a water meter and also the gas regulator that is there. So I'm gonna have to get with our gas department to make sure that there's no issue with it being installed that close. I don't know what type of separation there has to be with the gas regulators and other utilities going in. I said you got the fire hydrant on the right that runs to a water meter that is, I don't know, 4 feet from where that gas meter or gas regulator is. And again, there's all types of transmission lines running in this area. There's some light poles at O'Reilly's. And there's just to the right side where they have their light poles in their drive. Right, they're all in there.
Right there.
Well, we have our major light poles, and that was the second thing. We got O'Reilly's has theirs, and then that will be in with that DOT, Alabama DOT, for those poles to see if they could handle the additional equipment, or if you guys can attach to their poles.
We can't attach to their poles, and this pole wouldn't handle it. See how narrow that pole gets to the
Right.
top? We have, on all of these sites, we have probably 4 inches of coax that are coming up that pole. Those poles, we just can't.
Right. So it's like, this is going down, it's in the middle, it's right in the open in the middle of nothing, so it's another target point to where, we don't even, our sign ordinance is very strict, so that way things that are in the right of way are certain sizes. And all the other poles in this area are major transmission lines that our electrical department, we're not going to attach them to those poles. I think I can speak for Mike Allison on that. And then we can ask him again and verify. So this here, we just have to, I'll talk with staff and looking further and see about maybe what color of pole we can put here if we can't find another spot to try to co-locate it or another place to put it. Because being on Greeno Road, it's our major corridor getting into not downtown Fairhope, but getting into the middle of Fairhope. And we want to pay very close attention to what's going up there. Next on the list is another one. It's in the middle of a subdivision in their common area green space. And this one, I'm gonna have to do a little more research on this site to make sure it's, because on some of the drawings that you had, it looked like they were right outside of the right of way.
Yeah.
So this one was right on the corner, so location of that to actually be in the right of way or versus being in their common area will be a factor, making sure. And then here they got light poles. We have our subdivision regulations regulate the height that light poles can be, which they're too low than what these cell towers
What are those heights that we
be.
require?
In the
20-foot maximum?
20 foot in subdivisions is a 20-foot maximum light pole for the subdivision. So I'm kind of referencing the subdivision regulations. We don't allow any poles taller than 20 feet. So something we want to look into, is it taken away from the character of the neighborhood where the only thing that we have in there are, 30 to 38 foot tall. On the other map, it shows how tall this pole was.
31 to the top.
31 feet to the top. So we're going to be 11 feet taller, and I really don't think that for any of the neighborhoods, especially for in the future going through, there's going to be these dead spots in these areas. But we're telling developers when they build these subdivisions, our subdivision regulations won't let you put a light pole in there that's taller than 20 foot. So we really don't want to have any other poles going in there that are above that 20 foot. So for this site here, going out to the road, you're almost 100 feet outside of your area, and there's really not another area that's outside of a subdivision to place it.
If you have a pole, let's say you want it to be 33 feet or 35 feet, is adding two smaller poles an option to get the coverage you need?
No. Like if we want to be at 30 feet, you're talking about doing two 15-foot poles? No, because we don't want to be that close to the people.
Right. Right. So what is the minimum height that you guys?
On that one, it would probably be about 25.
Okay.
And it's 500 feet from this road, and if we move, this one you could just look at these houses and tell how much traffic is gonna is being used here on cell service. Moving it to this road would be
Right. And
just too far. But
I was gonna say, from what you said, only being able to move 100 feet or so,
that's
with that
fine.
area there, you're hundreds of feet in any direction to get to somewhere else. But we gotta try as much as we can to not
Yeah.
change the character of the surrounding neighborhoods with the poles that are going up.
I agree
Which
with
some of
that.
the other ones that were going in front of the residential houses, you know, if we can work on co-locating some of those,
Sure.
then we can make that work. Being in the middle of a subdivision where our light poles don't go over 20 feet,
Mike, is that green area, is that common area there?
that green area is a lake.
Lake, okay.
Yes,
All
that's a
right.
Spring Lake neighborhood.
Is it actually required to be in the right of way, or could you guys actually, could you locate it on, say, common area? I mean, if, with the consent of the POA or property owner association, is that is
Yeah,
that an
we would-
option for you?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah, they would just have to approve it.
And most common areas, because of our subdivision regulations, have a utility easement all the way across them.
Okay. So it wouldn't be any problem
Right.
gaining access to it? Okay.
So might be able to look into an area that's closer maybe to that lake, that is on a fringe where there aren't any houses around that area. There, I see, there's a couple trees here on the southern or northern end of the lake, right in there, that it might blend in and may be able to where it would be camouflaged enough.
That'd be just maybe 30, 40, 50 feet away? How far is that?
300.
300?
Do you have, online, do you have like can I pull this subdivision record and see that online?
Yeah, we'd be glad to give you the
Yeah,
plat,
and I'll-
seen the plat to it, that's
Okay.
fine. We'd be glad to give that to you.
Yeah, and just for future reference, if you ever board, the county, through Baldwin County, you can go on their map viewer, and if you click on any parcel and then ask for more detail, it will tell you the subdivision and the recording number, and then you can go back to the Baldwin County site to the judge probate, and they have a very easy, where you can actually pull the PDF of that recorded document up. So,
Okay.
Very exciting reading, too.
Comes in handy then.
you know, it is very,
It certainly does. Technology at its best.
The next location, structure number 9, that hits close to home for well, pretty much everybody in the room. This is across from our office, as a matter of fact.
and we have the worst looking office in town, so we don't really have anything to say there.
Yeah, we don't want to obstruct our view of the landfill.
Wait, is that
Waste
your
management
pole there?
That
facility.
is our pole, yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, so and that's still there, I imagine.
Yeah, and
yeah,
that's an option?
Yeah, so we need to just go on that
All right.
pole.
okay. And we're almost done. We only have a few more to go.
We're getting better at
Okay.
this.
We haven't talked about my project, so.
And I just want to say, thanks to you guys for working with us. We really appreciate that. I mean, we want to have a good relationship and work together to try to solve your problems and also try to, do what our job is for the city. So we really
10
appreciate
was-
that. Thank you very much.
Nah,
Yeah,
10
10 was is at
10,
Volanta
11.
Park, or 10, or 11 and 12 are taken out. 10 is at Volanta Park. It's at our, one of our big municipal complex, has a football field, several baseball fields. And this one was a co-locate on
on a light pole.
on a big light pole, on a stadium light pole.
At the baseball or football stadium?
Is located at the northwest corner
Okay.
of the bleachers at the football stadium.
Perfect.
Right there on that tower.
So, yeah, the plan would be to put like an arm that came out of that with an antenna on it.
Right.
Perfect.
That, very helpful, actually.
Yeah.
And I don't think there was any issue other than the fact that since this is not right away, that would be either some type of license, franchise, cooperative maintenance agreement or something, and that would be, that would require city council to approve that, because it's not in the right-of-way inventory. It is considered public parkland, so.
And there are several others. I didn't know if this was a concern with it being right out in the open next to the stadium. There's 15 of these light poles out there. Didn't know if we wanted to look into moving it to just a light pole that wasn't right in the middle, right above
I
the
think that
concession
one, I don't see
stand.
any problem with that one, Richard. Yeah,
I don't either.
Yeah, I think that's fine.
They already got a gigantic fixture on the top of it.
It's got the speaker that is above
I
there.
don't see any problem with that, yeah.
I was just worried for you guys about if it was how tall it was going to go with the bleachers being right there, if that was going to cause any problems. But
Yeah, I mean, I think any of those poles like that would be acceptable to us, that they're existing and.
Site 13, this again was in a neighborhood. There is no overhead power. Jeff, you mentioned something about an antenna being somewhere in this area. You still here?
You'll come in a minute.
But here for the location of this, there's a vacant piece of property that is fenced off, that is all wooded. It's going on the corner from what we got on the screen right here on the right side between the sidewalk and the fence back there.
What neighborhood?
This is the neighborhood of River Oaks and D'Estrahan, that little conglomeration of neighborhoods there. Jeff, didn't you mention there was some type of tower around?
Oh, no, there's a tower. That's just, that's a fenced-in lot. There's supposed to be a retention pond back there. So that.
Was there a tower close to this
So if it was
location?
camouflaged inside there.
Saw
is what we're-
some camouflage in there, it probably work, but, you know.
Do you know, I don't know off the top of my head who owns that, whose property
It's
it is.
probably part of.
Probably the homeowners association.
Yeah, look at that.
Whatever I'll ask him, but-
Yeah, the map, you
Yeah.
remember
So, yeah.
River Oaks Subdivision Property Owners Association.
that?
Okay. So maybe possibly, since that is a retention facility and it's already slighted just on the other side, permission with them to take the fence down and go through those necessary steps to put it inside of there, which I guess it has to be a gate to get into that retention area somewhere. I didn't look at it that closely when I went to the site, but there is a gate there.
I mean, on something like this, we're gonna end up having to, I'm trying to see where the power is coming in at. End up boring power all through this neighborhood and then onto their private property too, and fiber.
Well, if it's a common area that is with it, like we said before, that should have an easement, a utility easement across the entire common area should be in place, and I can check.
So this is one of the areas you have to lay the fiber here, this neighborhood? So it'll already be opened up anyway?
No, I mean, we have, one of these projects is actually preparing for that site, but it's not doing anything in the subdivision yet until we determine the exact.
would probably put it in here, wouldn't you?
Yeah, we'd probably
And
put
then
it
we
right
would
on
just
back there.
pick it up there and run it to the pole underground.
Most of these subdivision streets have got utility easements behind the right-of-way, parallel with the roads. Some of the common areas have blanket utility easements, some don't. It just depends on who the engineer was that.
Yeah, somebody can look at.
Until
Yeah,
recently.
we can help with that.
Check into that.
All right, two more.
And then number 14, I'm trying to remember which location this was.
Let me zoom out.
Oh, this was on Fairhope Avenue, right as we enter into the city. This is the main drag. Richard, you can help me out here because we're looking into, at this entry point, this is right where Fairhope Avenue starts to bend, where we're talking about doing some changing of the road there with an island and some
That is
curbing.
down at Fairwood. This is closer to Ingleside.
This is closer, this is right at Ingleside. This is right before we get in to the Fairwood area. But again, the same concept where we're looking heavily at coming into downtown. This is Fairhope Avenue, the other end of where we were looking at the pier, where you end up at. This is where you start at, right off of Greeno Road. You come in, you slow down going around the curve, right at Ingleside, and then you're, boom, hit straight with all the residential homes going down Fairhope Avenue. And the proposed site is right beside an existing driveway. It's, I think, right in this area, and I think there was still a stake. It's yeah.
It looks a little far back on this drawing. I mean, on the Google.
So again, it's close to that. It was close to that property line where the coordinates took it to, and where the drawings showed it being.
So the property line on this is right there. Right? Goes right up through the middle of that driveway.
It's a little further to the, say, I think the view of it's torqued a little bit. I think the property line goes out where the driveway is fully on that person's property, doesn't split it.
We're trying to go on this side.
Right, yeah. You guys had it
As far
somewhere
to the property line as we can.
closer into there. There was not any locations near this to co-locate or to move it. There was some overhead.
I do want to look, like, I know the concern is coming into town and seeing that, but I don't think you will. Just because of the view
Well,
being
it's
blocked
also-
like that.
The people's view of sitting in their house when they're having it come in, and then I'm not worried about that, but also I know we've had some issues where power poles being next to driveways and almost limiting access into the driveways, and the poles getting hit and getting damaged.
Was that a pole right there?
That's just a spot pole, yeah,
Is it, okay.
which that might be,
What do you mean a spot pole, what do you mean?
just with a drop with it.
Is that an option for that?
No, I don't think so. I mean, with it being on private property like that, I don't,
Yeah.
and most of the time, they're not gonna let us, the power
Well,
company's
if
not
it's a-
gonna
if
let
it's a
us.
power pole on private property, there's an easement. That pole's it's not gonna sit there without an easement if it's one of our poles.
Yeah, but it may be given to the power company. I know that
There's a
anytime that,
UT.
like if a power company has a light pole on private property or a power pole like that, I mean, they rarely let us have access to it because it can be moved at any time and then they have to tell us to move.
Yeah, that's
And
That's
they
something you
won't
might want to
tell
talk, when y'all meet with Mike Allison about the metering, you might want to just talk, just bring that up and see if there's any method, any way we could, what
this
governs that.
this was one of the few other sites that there really were not any other
Right, okay,
or clear alternatives for it to go.
okay.
And then the last site, last site's in front of the Dollar General. And again, this was another site that really didn't have very many options. There's overhead power across the street, but they are main transmission lines. They're not just little primaries for it. And it's not, there's a neighborhood just to the east side of where this is, but there is a natural vegetation wooded area that runs alongside of it.
Okay.
So it's really not hindering anything. It's not changing the character of the neighborhood or surrounding area. Like I said, that's the power that's across the street. I don't think we're attaching.
Right, I don't see any problem with that one.
So this one here,
Y'all see any problem with that, Richard?
No, that's, you're in that transition between heavy commercial, transecting into residential. I don't think that one's gonna stand out.
That's it.
and that was the last one. And I'll make notes and all this that we talked about. And then some of the ones like for this one, we'll get, just maybe specify a color, and we're probably brown or green or black. Don't know. I'll look at the surrounding pictures again and kind of see which color we think will blend in the most, and then we'll put that spec on the drawings to turn in.
I'll send you pictures of any of the different colors.
Yeah,
that we
yeah.
have
If you can
already
send me
put in.
just pictures of whatever pole options there are for that, then I can take a look, review those, and take a look at that and see some locations. A certain pole may work better than others. I'm not going to sit here and say, hey, paint them all Munsell green and let's call it good. I want to try to, diversify it as much as we can to make it aesthetically pleasing as best as we can without, being overbearing or anything like that.
We need to build these for the citizens and our customers.
Right, and that's-
So we
and we-
want to work with you guys.
Right.
We
Make
know
sure we can.
they're gonna want it, they want better service, they're not gonna wanna see obtrusive poles, but they know they're gonna have to be there, so we just reach that happy medium where we can get it in, make the citizens happy, make it, at the end of the day, it'll be good. As far as that was the only questions, that I had, if that wasn't enough,
I think we have some work to do.
I'll say,
And I'll look at some of those other sites we talked about and pull the plats and see what we can
Okay.
do.
And then if you need a copy of any plats, I'm sure we'll be in constant correspondence back and forth on anything you need or anything I need. Let me know. I can pretty quickly pull up a plat for any area that you're looking in.
Okay.
And get any recommendations that you might need.
All right.
And I just want to say how much we appreciate you guys working with us. We really do, and I think this, when we can work together, we can do things a lot easier, and I appreciate you guys' willingness to work with us.
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
I want to thank you. And we're all working for the citizens of Fairhope.
That's
so
right.
That's the goal.
That's right.
Landlines are a thing of the past. Every house now has like 4 or 5 cell phones.
That's right.
They want to all work at the same time.
And smart refrigerators and everything
Smart
else.
thermostat, smart door doorbells, door
Door-
knockers.
yeah.
Before long, you can have a collar for your dog that you can tell it, hey, it's time for you to go out and go to the bathroom or something.
I need, my wife's dog needs one of those. So, all right, that's it, guys. Thank you very much, and we're adjourned.
Do you,
I'm
do you want
sorry.
to go through any of that on the linear placement?
I think we were comfortable on all that.
No, that was.
Okay.
The
I've
only
got,
concern was that stretch of aerial is whether or not
Okay.
there was already aerial there.
okay, gotcha.
Anyway, of course,
I had
if
that
you're familiar with when we're going across these neighborhoods, if you're going across any of those, it's the door hangers and notifying them what's going on and point of contact.
Right.
Yeah,
That's-
common point of, have your, what's recommended weight is do like you did, like the project you had in Rock Creek about a year ago, where you had a common point of contact with the contractor. And I think that worked really well.
Yeah, some of these areas are not, it's easy to work with HOA and get that message out. Some of these other areas where it's more of a linear project, it's a little tougher.
Right.
The Gayfer Avenue project, we'll definitely door hanger and do all that, just like we did Quail Creek and Rock Creek.
Yeah, that worked really, really
And all
well.
that. The others, I don't know how you want to address that.
Is that something
going
we could
forward.
use the Everbridge with?
We can.
That way
Yeah,
Jeff
yeah.
can.
Everbridge is a rapid notification system via
Yeah.
email and text message, so.
And,
Yeah, that's fine too.
and it's fair to say that the aerial is really non-disruptive, meaning it's a series of bucket trucks that just click right
Right.
around, so there's no one getting holes in their
Right.
yards or anything like that. So
Right.
it's not as intrusive.
Mostly just small delays with
But-
traffic having coming to the road with the trucks there.
But one in particular, the one going through the fruit and nut, did you look at it? Yeah.
I tried not to.
Well, anyway, that's, we'll do our best, and maybe we can work with the city to notify the residents that way.
I think so.
Yep.
If y'all have good participation with it.
Mhm.
Along with the roadway signs and that kind of thing, letting them
Right.
know, a lot of it's letting them know who's working in the
And what's going
area
on.
and what's
right,
going on.
Right. And I want to say that since the AT&T guys are here, Wade's always been good to work with. Meantime, we have, we were doing the door hangers, you're always very cooperative, we really appreciate that, and you've been good to work with, we appreciate that.
Makes the process flow a whole lot easier. And that's one of the big things for this meeting, is so that way we can sit down, we can take us 30 minutes to go over this. If we try to go over all that via telephone or via email, it'd be hard to understand each other on what we were saying, and then at the end, neither one of us would be happy with the end result, but this at least alleviates a lot of that back and forth from the beginning.
So this is
It's
great.
a huge help.
So I know there's gonna be some back and forth on the poll locations, and that may get delayed even another meeting. But from our placement standpoint, we would like to go ahead and
Okay.
get that ball rolling.
That was gonna be one of my
By
questions,
5.
was if they have to move stuff, is that going to change?
A little
What's
bit.
that?
We had kind of general areas we were working with them initially when we started designing these, because we've been working on these for probably 3 or 4 months.
Right.
So that when that location gets nailed down, we'll issue a separate job to come out of a handhold that we're leaving in a general area to hit the tower,
Right.
wherever it's
Keep in mind, it still has to go in
specifically
front of the planning commission, so the planning commission could still say one of these sites.
Right,
for a
well, these
character
are
or
also
whatever.
kind of larger scale projects for
Okay.
us, because we're also hitting locations that if we do get a chance to fiber overbuild that area, this would be the area, this would be the feeder for that service as well, so.
I want to make sure we didn't need to go through the planning commission to have his approved before yours were heard, to make sure that they weren't approving something that was going to be not needed or not
No,
installed.
not really, because one of them, like the North Ingleside, which is the .05, is actually the feeder for the overbuild area of Gayfer, which is the .06 project.
Okay.
So they're kind of multi-purpose for us. Some
Right.
of them are feeder reinforcement. Some of them are actually new area, like the one on Valana that would feed the one at the football field. We don't have much of a service need for that other than the small cell tower.
Right.
So, but the rest of them are, there's kind of a bigger picture.
Bigger
in mind
picture
with
there
what they're
anyway.
doing.
They're being able to piggyback off of it.
Right, and I've got other permits, and maybe I'll get with you after the meeting and give you, I brought you copies of ALDOT county permits that we've already received that go along with
Okay.
some of these and that kind of thing.
Before we adjourn, can y'all give us just a thumbnail sketch of the 5G? Because a lot of people have asked us, what does that mean? I mean, what's the purpose, what's the end goal? I think we do, but it'd be great for everyone to maybe could, y'all just a quick description of what that is.
Well, right now, we're really filling in 4G gaps, the
Okay.
4G holes we have in our network and the additional capacity we need.
Right.
5G will be the next phase.
Okay.
You're looking at several years out. I mean, it's not around the corner, but especially, in certain areas. But 5G will allow much faster download capacity. So it will almost provide up to a gig service, gig speed, which is what you would get on a fiber-based network. So we're talking about really wireless internet, which will really help also in our rural areas where we can't lay fiber. So it also allow for autonomous driving cars. We're looking at the latency, because the latency, the delay between the time, the signaling, it allows for almost instantaneous back and forth conversations. So the autonomous cars, medical purposes. What else? What other some other features?
We don't know. I mean, no one really knows. I mean, it's just going to be
evolving. Yeah.
right. It's still evolving. It's going to be the
Yeah.
data speeds are going to be so ridiculously fast, and I mean that's what's being worked on right now. Once this rolls out, what can we do with it? I mean, television and
Almost
a
the
video.
difference between having a phone that you had to plug into the wall and then going to cordless phones.
Yeah.
It's just, great, you're going to be able to talk. Well, now you can walk outside with your phone. There's just going to be that next step where it's
Yes.
going to be that much better.
I'm kind of looking forward to the autonomous vehicles. I'm looking forward to that.
But if you
wish
think
I had
about
one
it,
this morning.
it's like the runner of, like in 2007 when the iPhone came out. I mean, think about for years and years, cell phones were out just for voice calling. When the iPhone came out in 2007, the applications that were on there, I mean, the maps, I mean, the searching the web, everything. So 5G is the next evolution to that. So we don't really know what it's going to allow, the applications that will be created on 5G, but we do know this can provide the services that will lay the foundation for the next group of, Google, Facebooks, and all that those type of things.
Sure, great.
When the 5G comes in, is it going to be able to utilize these same poles that we're putting in today?
That's yes.
Because that was also one of the questions back in my head was going, all right, we're putting all this in, and I know that 5G, was around the corner, a few years out, however, 3, 5, however many it is, but where are they going to be able to utilize the same type of stuff that we're putting in the grand structures that we're putting in now?
And that's where we're going from the big towers you see out there down to the smaller cells, because 5G uses a millimeter, which doesn't allow it to travel as far.
Right.
It's the distance, and it's really lower power also. So you can't, 5G is roughly about 750 to 1,000 feet roughly.
Yeah.
And 4G is like a quarter of a mile distance depending on terrain and stuff. So it has to be at it's a lower level, it has to be a lower height to spread that information out, the signals out.
Well, thank you very much. We appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Anybody got anything else?
Is it so for the planning meeting, the meeting in March? After that, then what?
Permitting.
And then we go into permitting. Because I think our goal is to get we would like to, I'm probably not all of them, but the majority of them we'd like to have on by summer to kind of beat the
Yeah, I think that's
traffic.
probably doable. I don't see.
After the meeting, once they get approved, unless there's a condition along with the approval, such as one of the sites, the planning commission says, what, we need to work on that, can we move it here? And you say, yes, not a problem. Once that gets justified and shown that that's where it's going to be moved, then for that particular site, we'll be able to move on. You'll be going to Eric to get the permits to start installing all the structures.
And I do want to make a note that the March meeting has been moved. The planning commission voted to move that to Tuesday, March 12th,
Okay,
due to Mardi Gras.
gotcha. Is that what the RV, I drove through Mobile and there's an RV
Oh,
park.
yeah.
Yeah,
People
underneath
from-
that shade.
That's it.
Haven't-
The last year
Already.
of it, huh?
Is
No,
that
it's
official
already
now? Is
started.
the
I don't
last year
know,
for it?
I guess that's the last I heard.
I heard the
They're
same
going back
thing.
and forth.
Yeah.
Fire hazard
Yeah.
under the bridge.
With the RV?
Yeah.
Yeah,
I noticed they're spaced out further.
Sucker burned for months.
They were stacked.
There ain't that much left.
All right, let's go ahead and adjourn, guys, and we appreciate it. Thank you all very much.
Thanks, gentlemen.
Non-related to this, we had the State of the City